What's up, everybody? Welcome to Technically Bitcoin, the very first episode. My name is Jan. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at UTXOs, also a DGen and a non-technical user of Bitcoin. And I'm here with Tyler.
And I'm a sorcerer at the Taproot Wizards. I try and do a little magic every day. And I'm very passionate about Bitcoin and education. So I'm really excited what we have cooking for you all today.
Just briefly, what to expect from this series, right? So this is a very first episode, but ultimately, as I mentioned, I am really a non-technical user of Bitcoin. I am not an engineer. And so I have a lot of different questions, and I do believe people that are new to Bitcoin, they have the same questions or maybe even more. And so what we're really trying to do with this series is to go into some of these technical terms and go a little bit deeper and under the hood and really trying to simplify what all of these things mean so that you can make sense of Bitcoin.
I'm really excited about that. I think the Ordinals community has such vivacious life in it that wants to understand what's going on in Bitcoin. And our hope is that we can help demystify some of those things that you've heard before, but you never really quite understood what it was. So in our first episode today, we're going to talk about the fundamental building block of Bitcoin, which is the UTXO. So we're going to run through what is a UTXO, how is the UTXO model different than the account-based model, how do transactions work at a very basic level in Bitcoin, and then we're going to explore a real Ordinals transaction in the mempool. So I think it'll be fun, and I hope you all enjoy it. We're starting with UTXOs because UTXOs are they are the fundamental building block of Bitcoin. Well, it's pretty straightforward. They're very simple. The U stands for unspent. The TX stands for transaction. And the O stands for output. That's it. Like UTXOs, we're done.
Simple.
You got it. Unspent transaction output. Really, these are the things that Bitcoin is tracking. And at its core, a UTXO is it's very simple. It's made up of two components. The first thing it's made up of is what's called the amount. And this is literally the amount of Bitcoin that is in a UTXO. And this tends to be delineated in what are called Satoshis. So Satoshis are 1/100th millionth of a Bitcoin, a very, very small unit. But on the actual Bitcoin network, when you specify an output, you will specify it in Satoshis. We're going to make it easy here. We're just going to change that to Bitcoin. So maybe, the amount in this example, UTXO, is 0.5 BTC. And then the second thing is basically what I'm going to call, for today's purposes, the owner. And this is who is allowed to spend the Bitcoin, or what is allowed to spend the Bitcoin. And so for simplicity today, we're just going to talk about it as if, the owner is you, Jan. You have a wallet, it has some private keys, and the way this Bitcoin can be sent is by you signing a transaction with it. So let's say that here today, this UTXO will be owned by Jan.
Like the ultimate goal is
Yes.
that you cannot spend something twice, right?
Exactly.
That's basically solving the double spend issue, which is kind of the underlying problem that we're really trying to solve with Bitcoin network, and the blockchain itself, right? And so these are the transactions, or these are, I don't know, we can say Satoshis that can actually be spent, right?
It's exactly what you said, Jan. The point of Bitcoin is to solve this double spend problem. It's basically to make sure that if you own 0.5 Bitcoin, you can't both send it to me and to, Elizabeth. Let's do an example. Let's go back and let's say we had that Jan block and you had the 0.5 BTC. Let's say over here that we have another Jan block and you own, let's say 0.3 BTC. And then let's say, I did a PhD, so I'm poor. I didn't make money in my 20s. So I only own 0.2 BTC. This is a very, very simple example of what the UTXO set could look like. There's 3 UTXOs in this network right now. 2 of those are owned and spendable by you. Those total up to 0.8 Bitcoin. 1 is owned and spendable by me. That totals to 0.2 Bitcoin. So overall, this very simple Bitcoin network has 1 total Bitcoin in it. And this is how it's currently divided up. In the UTXO model, the primary thing that you are tracking is these UTXOs. You are tracking chunks of Bitcoin. And as the protocol, like, you have no knowledge or care if the same owner owns multiple pieces of Bitcoin, right? That's something you can go in and look at the protocol. Maybe you want to build a wallet. You actually care, does this person own multiple UTXOs? But the Bitcoin network itself, it does not care who these owners are. Its only job is to make sure that the owners are valid. Like, they are the ones who were allowed to own it, and they are the ones who are allowed to spend it. Now, that's different than the account-based model. This is what Ethereum runs off of. Ethereum, like, there is no difference between one Ethereum and another Ethereum, where there is a difference between one piece of Bitcoin and another piece of Bitcoin. So, like, for instance, in the account-based model, let's say you Jan, you want to send me 0.6 Bitcoin. It's easy. Like, we just go and we say, okay, like, debit Jan's account minus 0.6 BTC. And then you're able to say, yeah, I want to send it to Tyler. And it says, okay, like, credit Tyler 0.6 BTC. It's that simple. In the UTXO model, it's not. We operate a little differently.
Now we're going to have this example of where I'm going to be sending some Bitcoin to you, right?
We said, Jan, you own 0.5 BTC. And what we're trying to do here is, Jan, you want to send me, Tyler, 0.6 BTC. All right, so that's our objective. How does that actually happen on Bitcoin? Well, you're going to go into your wallet and you're going to say, wallet, send Tyler 0.6. And the wallet's going to go, okay, how do I do that? It's going to go look at the UTXOs that you own. And it's going to say, okay, let's see, you own 0.5 BTC. Great. That doesn't get us all the way there. So do you have any more? It's going to look around again. It's going to say, oh, great. Look, I found another UTXO you own. You own this 0.3 BTC one. What do I do now? Like, I want to send you 0.6, not 0.5, 0.3, or 0.8. Well, in order to transact on Bitcoin, you have to spend UTXOs. And if you want to include part of a UTXO in a transaction, you have to include the whole UTXO in a transaction. So to the Bitcoin network at the moment, there's no notion of you, Jan, owning 0.1 Bitcoin. You can't just magically create that and include that as an input. You have to use this larger sum. You can think of it like, if you wanted to buy something that was 15 cents, but you only have a quarter, you have to give someone the whole quarter. You can't just, magically cut the quarter into 3/5 and hand them that. And so that's how the Bitcoin network works as well. So what will happen here is we'll take these inputs and you'll spend them to 2 new outputs. So you'll say, okay, like, take that 0.5 and send it all the way over. And then for the 0.3, you're going to end up splitting it into 2. You're going to send 0.1 BTC from that up to this new output. And that's going to be 0.6 BTC. And this is what is now going to be owned by me. And then you're going to say, hey, take the rest of that and give it back to me. So now we're going to have this new output where, Jan, you own a new UTXO that has 0.2 BTC on it. So now if we kind of play this out a little further, and let's assume this transaction's valid, we're going to end up at this state where there's a new UTXO set. And the UTXO set is now going to look like, well, Tyler owns that 0.6 BTC that you just sent him. Jan, you have this new UTXO. It's basically the change from your transaction. That's 0.2 BTC. And then in that transaction, this old UTXO that existed before Well, it was never spent, so it's still there, the 0.2 I originally owned. And so this is how the Bitcoin blockchain works. This is how it updates. This is how Bitcoin is spent. And the whole point of these nodes and all of the cryptography and everything that goes into it is exactly what you said before. It's just to make sure that, Jan, when you're spending that, you're only spending it once. You can't send it to both me and Elizabeth, or you can't send it to both me and Udi. Bitcoin can only be spent once.
Great. And I think the next thing that we need to include here is fees, right? Because this example obviously is very simplified one. Can you talk about the fees, maybe show some mempool transaction or show some sort of real life example?
This is an example Ordinals transaction in the mempool. It's real. Involves my favorite OMB. He's a block explorer, and that's why he's appearing in the mempool. He's doing some block exploring. It's a very simple transaction. It's just sending this ordinal from one address to another. Let's zoom in a little bit to the inputs and the outputs. So you can see here that there are two inputs. This first one is the ordinal, 10,000 Satoshis. And that's the 10,000 Satoshis. The very first one is the one that's tracking my OMB that you see there. This other thing that's 50,000 Satoshis, that's just a UTXO that's purely going to be used to pay for fees, because I want my ordinal to remain on this 10,000 Satoshi UTXO. If we scroll over to the outputs, what you'll see here is that there are two outputs, and you'll notice that the top one is again going to contain the ordinal. So you'll see it's still 10,000. This has the ordinal on it. But this one on the bottom is now 42,860 Satoshis. And what this is this is the original 50,000 Satoshis minus the fee that I paid to the network. Basically, what this transaction is doing is it is sending one UTXO, and that's the ordinal. It's keeping the size the exact same, 10,000 Satoshis, so the amount is the same, and the output's just different. It's now at a new address. But then in order to get this transaction included in the network, somehow you have to pay the miners a fee. And so we're taking this 50,000 Satoshis, we're deducting a fee, we're sending that off to the miner. And then the last thing to notice here is that these two addresses, these are the exact same addresses, right? So this is just some type of fee wallet that I'm using to pay fees.
How much is the fee?
Yeah. Mempool.space is kind enough to tell you exactly what the fee is up here. Amazing. And here you can see the fee is 7,140 Satoshis. And if you add that to the 42,860 Satoshis, you'll find that that adds up to exactly what we started with, the 50,000 Satoshis over here.
Amazing. What is the number below the outputs? So there is a number in a blue box, but it's more than 50,000 Satoshis. What does this mean? Can you comment on that?
You might notice it happens to be the sum of those two outputs. And so it's telling you what is the total amount of Bitcoin being output from this transaction. If you just take nothing else away from this, the job of the Bitcoin blockchain is to track the UTXO set and basically prevent double spending. This is the whole reason it was created. Can we create this system of accounting where no one's allowed to cheat? Now, how do you do that? Satoshi decided we're going to use this model called UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs. You can think of it like physical bits of Bitcoin. And every single one of those UTXOs, it has two components, an amount and a public key or an owner. And so the owner is the person that's allowed to spend it. and the amount is just how much Bitcoin there is there. And then the whole point of Bitcoin is, it's not just can we create this set once, it's how can we transact on this. And what the nodes are doing is they are validating that transactions on Bitcoin spend existing UTXOs and create new UTXOs in valid ways. So just making sure that, Jan, if you're spending Bitcoin, you're the one allowed to spend Bitcoin. If I'm spending the Bitcoin, I'm the one allowed to spend the Bitcoin. If there's a multi-sig, 2 or 3 of us have to sign. And so as those transactions occur, they're constantly creating new UTXOs and spending the old ones.
I would encourage everybody, if you guys have any questions, if there is anything specific that wasn't clear and that you want us to maybe cover in a little bit more detail, or again, you have specific requests for things to include in future episodes, please do let us know. It should be pretty clear now what UTXOs are, how they behave, how these transactions behave. And I'm just excited for the next episode.